Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Dr. Emma-Leigh Senyard. Dr. Emma, how are you doing, ma?
I'm lovely. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you very much, Dr. Emma. And also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are a clinical physiologist. Can you please, Dr. Emma, discuss more about yourself and how you're doing currently now, Dr. Emma?
Thank you. Yes, I'm a clinical psychologist with about a decade's experience working across the lifespan in neurodivergent conditions with autism, ADHD, anxiety, trauma, generational trauma, and the nervous system. I really like working in that space. Also, with a mix of spirituality and helping people find meaning in their lives as well.
100%. It is 100% not easy when we are in the position to help people to see the life path, the right path to what is probably their concern or what they are actually going through is something that is very, very I would say something that someone can not imagine and also hope that it's 100% help one to thrive and also become more better in the coming future. And I also like to drive from the experience you've had as a clinical physiologist and also other aspects you are also into as well. Have you written any book or are you planning to write any book in the coming future, Dr. Emma?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm a published academic researcher. So I have published academic journals. That's in the space of after hours school care for children, their mental health in that setting, but also in engagement for online interventions for adolescents. I haven't written any books per se yet, but it is in the realm in my head. I would like to write a book around generational trauma, actually, and also what I call mental health biohacking. And I'm really passionate about that, which in my head is all about how can we have the best mental health ourselves and how can we prevent mental health conditions. People might be familiar with the term biohacking from a physiological perspective, but I like biohacking from a mental health perspective. So that's in the future, but my current published papers are all academic papers at the moment.
Beautiful. And those academic can actually get to something that we can actually add into something that can be more profound in regards to generational trauma, and also aspect that can help us to improve our life as well. And I also like to drive to the
Mm.
point of generational trauma and also personal trauma as well. We do know generational trauma can be something that comes from our forefathers, from our parents, from our grandparents. So many listeners could sense they are carrying emotional weight that didn't start with them. They realize they are facing a certain pattern that keeps coming back. So, how do you think someone can recognize a generational trauma and a personal trauma, Dr. Emma?
Yeah, and I think to be honest, it starts with a lot of self-awareness. And sometimes that awareness might not come until maybe your 20s, late 20s, 30s, even 40s. Sometimes I see, or even much later, sometimes I see with different people, or when I bring awareness to it, when I say, "Oh, did this pattern start with you? Or did your mom sound like that? Did your dad sound like that? Did your grandma sound like that?" It can be very subtle as well. In terms of a personal trauma, that is more of a direct experience. Like maybe there was climate change, as we were talking before. Maybe there was a natural disaster. Maybe there was a car accident. Maybe there was an abuse that you directly experienced. And that is when you have personal, but that's a personal trauma, for example. But generational trauma can be very subtle. So it can show out in terms of maybe you're a people pleaser, always saying yes and overcommitting yourself. Maybe you feel guilty all the time when maybe you shouldn't. Those sort of tendencies can be very subtle, but often start maybe even, 3, 4 generations down the line, potentially.
100% beautiful. It shows that generational trauma can come out in different ways. It can come out in a way that we do not even expect at times. And we should try our best to be in the position to sense it and also recognize it, because it is when we recognize the sense of pattern, that is when we will try our best to know how to control it and also know how to work on it as well, which is not always easy most of the time. And also, I would like to drive to the point whereby generational trauma could live in the body, not just the mind. Because when someone is referring to something that deals with generational, it concerns something that probably deals with the mind and probably not the body as well. So, how do you think generational trauma also live in the body, but not just the mind?
Mm,
And why do you think is nervous system work essential for the healing process or for real healing process, Dr. Emma?
Yeah, that's such a great question because it's very overlooked, I would say, in psychology and then also in the medical world, that there's this sense that trauma can live in the body. And what we know, the research has shown that before we form memories of, say, we form memories around 3 or 4 years old, before we form those memories, the body actually remembers things that have happened before then. So, I always say to clients that the body has a sensory memory that can remember traumas that happened very early on, and then it continues to do that throughout life as well. So the body may, that the traumas and stress may manifest in the body over time as like migraines, muscle tension. We have this whole concept called IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, where a lot of people are having stomach issues or gut issues, and the medical professionals have no explanation as to where does that come from. But maybe they're missing that it may be trauma related. Because if we look at the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is what I think it's the second biggest cranial nerve in the body, it runs down the side of our neck, all through our heart, and then all around our stomach area. So when that's really sensitized, and the vagus nerve controls our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So when we're in a sympathetic nervous system all the time, sorry, sympathetic state all the time, which is our fight or flight or high stress level all the time, that's going to potentially impact maybe your heart area. It can cause arrhythmias. We know the literature and the research shows that high levels of stress is associated with even heart attacks, which can be scary. But also because it runs through the stomach area, lots of gut issues as well. And like I said, muscle tension as well. So sometimes we can find relief with getting a massage sometimes and so on. But nervous system work is really important to try and untangle this because the body remembers so much more than we might consciously remember in our mind. We want to teach our body a sense of safety. We want to bring our body back to being and feeling safe. And so nervous system work is about that, is about grounding in the body, teaching our body that we aren't in the past anymore because our nervous system is often stuck in our body is often stuck in the past, and teaching our body that we are here now in the moment and we are safe.
I sincerely appreciate the beautiful insight, Dr. Emma. It shows that despite the mind, which is connected to the generational trauma, our body can also do the same as well. And if we have a
Mhm.
body whereby, something that has been impacted down from the roots, it can continue in those perspective. It could be stomach pain, it could be constant headache, it could be anything that just continues to come back. And you said something very beautiful. You said that most of the sometimes the doctor or the medical area might not really know the issue that is going on with such person. So these are the pattern. It could be something that comes from the past, but we have to, as you said, give ourselves the definition that we are now currently in the present. We want to work on the present, and we should not rely on that past. We should continue to work on the body in the present. If we can continue to do that, I think those kind of situations start to ease up, because now we are not focusing on what is behind, we're focusing on what is at front. And if we can do that more constantly, then those situations can start to ease by itself naturally. And also, I would like to drive to the point of blaming. Because when we talk about
Mhm.
generational trauma, a lot of people connect it to blame. It is my mother, it is my grandfather, it is this, it is that. So we have to
Mhm.
dive into that perspective. So many listeners fear that exploring generational trauma means blaming parents or their ancestors. So how do you think healing happen with compassion instead of resentment, Dr. Emma?
Yeah, this is a great question as well. It's really important that we acknowledge that perhaps, and again, you need a little bit of awareness with this, but that we acknowledge that perhaps if the traumas didn't start with us, maybe they also didn't start with our parents. Where did they come from with that? And like I said before, like these traumas could be, potentially 5, 6 generations back, even longer. And we might not know about what has happened so long ago to have initially maybe caused these manifestations in behavior and so on. But what I think is really important and what I like to say is that when we hold resentment, is that it's often doing more harm to us than it is to our parents. If we're so angry and frustrated and so on, we're continuing to hold that resentment, anger, and so on in our body. And that's just potentially exacerbating health issues or causing health issues or not allowing us to move forward if we're always stuck in the past. Self-blame can be something that maybe was modeled potentially. So maybe your mum or father or both also blamed themselves for everything, and you saw that. So maybe they said, "Oh, after every conflict, it's all my fault," or "if I didn't do this," and so on. But it can also be a projection in terms of your parents may have intentionally or unintentionally, either way, projected their own insecurities onto you, which then made you feel guilty or then made you blame yourself. And then you began to think, okay, it's all my fault, and I shouldn't have done that. I'm so silly. I'm an idiot, and you start to get name calling. You call yourself unhelpful thoughts and so on. So it's important to know that it can be a projection. It can be that can be intentional or unintentional. But if we look at it from a place of compassion, then we can start to really let go of the emotions in our body, so they're not stored in our body, and understand that everyone is the way that they are, perhaps because of what they've experienced, because of their environment that they grew up in, because of their temperament, because of whatever resources that they had. And what I also like to say, which can help people with this, is that really everyone does the best that they can with the resources that they have in any given moment. So we can look back, and even though we might have so much anger around the way that we were treated from our parents, maybe they were doing the best that they could in that environment at that time. In today's world, we live in an environment where we have access to information. So that allows you and I to have conversations like this and have greater understanding of why our parents and ancestors may have behaved that way and why I'm reacting this way, and so why I'm feeling this way and so on. But perhaps our families, our other generations didn't have that access to information. So we can sit with compassion for that too.
I sincerely appreciate your beautiful insight, Dr. Emma. You said it very, very clearly. We are in a position to understand that sometimes we need to be in the position to just accept what is at hand and know how we can move forward. When we are blaming our parents or anybody in regards to some perspective, it is just a burden on us. It is all on us that we are going to hold and carry. And we do not want to be in the position whereby we hold burdens because those things are not going to be even going to be great for our health and also cause a lot of issues along the way as well. We want to live life of acceptance and also embracing what has happened and seeing how we can be a source to rectify such situation so we can live a more fulfilled life and also so that the next generation who are coming in won't inherit such kind of activity as well because we are not meant to be blamed at times in some kind of situation, as you said, background issues, and also community or surrounding which one person or a person actually grew up. So we have to just know that, okay, this is what is going on, this is how I can accept it, and this is how I can rectify, and also know how I can move a future for myself and also my children as well. And I would also like to drive to the point of signs because there are also some signs that someone can also sense when someone is repeating a family pattern. So, what do you
Mhm.
think are some of the subtle signs that someone is repeating a family pattern, even when they've consciously tried to do things differently, Dr. Emma.
I love what you say. The key word subtle, I think, because it is very subtle, and there needs to be some level of awareness that, as I keep saying, awareness, but this may come from, and maybe that it's not mine. And so, back to when I was talking about people pleasing or always saying yes or feeling guilty, they are typical traits that I would say are common that may show up that you may not be aware of that are not yours or perhaps didn't start with you. But perhaps you've been dealing with chronic health issues for some time. Chronic health issues are not always directly related to your health. Actually, the research shows that there's a large proportion of people that have autoimmune conditions, but also chronic stress. It's highly linked in with one another. So perhaps this has started a long, long time ago, or as you were growing up, often as well. So I also really like when, on this point, when people, I don't really like it, I shouldn't say that, but it comes to mind when people say, I never want to be like my parents. I'm never going to be like them. I'm going to be totally different. And what we can see that happens with that is that they just keep repeating it, but nothing really changes. Or when they start to become a parent, as I am myself, then they recognize, oh my gosh, I just reacted the same way that maybe my mum did or my parents did, and so on. And it's unfortunately, it's very common. The way that we parent children is often the way that we've been parented or similar, even though we want to be so different to them. So there's this whole process of reparenting yourself. And that is really key with this generational trauma work that we, even if we're not a parent ourselves, it's about what do I need to give myself that I didn't get when I was growing up? What is it that I'm grieving that I didn't have back then? So, all of these another other couple of signs that I'm just thinking of as well is some people have a tendency to over apologize or over explain. And in those instant, like when you say sorry for situations where you don't really need to say sorry, or you over explain something to get your point across. And then you start maybe perhaps being defensive. You feel like you have to justify yourself or you have to get some validation. And that comes from a potentially lack that you didn't have that love or support or what have you growing up. And again, we're not blaming our parents for that. It's because, they probably didn't have that either. And they didn't know how to give you that support that you needed growing up. But you can work on that through nervous system work and reparenting yourself with what you need.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emma. No matter the situation we find ourselves, no matter the patterns we are from our generations, from our families, we are in the position to know how we can try our best to rectify and also work on it as well. It could be love, it could be financial issue, it could be the way we speak, it could be the way we approach people. There are several ways that we can have some kind of situations in our life. But if we sit down, we are always the power, we are always the source. And so far, and with regards that we are always the source, we will always have a solution towards those perspectives and how we can also work on it as well. Ours is just to sit down and give ourselves the reflection to know who we really are and understand the kind of person we are, understand what usually comes in when we are not usually aware of it at times, and see how we can try our best to rectify such situation if we can be able, and also see how we can also proceed to do some things for our next generation so that they can also come out more better. We can't be perfect most of the time, but we can always improve in one way or the other. And also, I would just like to drive to the point of spirituality and also other as perspective as well. So, what role do you think meaning, spirituality, or belief systems plays in helping people integrate generational healing without trying to bypass emotional reality, Dr. Emma?
Yes, and I just want to what you just said around having control over your life. I just want to reflect on that. As you were saying that, I'd like to say to people that we are the CEO of our lives. We are the CEO of what we want in our lives. So regardless of what has happened in the past, we have control of our behavior and we can manufacture and create a life that we want. And that fits in well with spirituality, religion, and meaning. And we know that people who, often what I see is that people who've gone through a significant trauma or multiple significant traumas, or realize at some point in their lives that they've gone through all this generational trauma, it all kind of can come out all at once sometimes, or over a year or two. And there's so much work that all of a sudden we have to do and reparent ourselves and so on. And in that moment, often I see some people start to become religious, or they become spiritual, or have a spiritual awakening, or what have you. And or finding meaning, which I'll touch on in a second. But we know with the research that people who are religious or spiritual is actually a protective factor for them against developing potentially PTSD or further PTSD, or depression and anxiety, because it helps them find a sense of meaning, a sense of connectedness, a sense of belonging around, okay, these terrible things happen to me, or even it may be big T traumas or little T traumas, as in massive, massive big traumas where it was very unfortunate, maybe perhaps what you see, and you may have seen or experienced loss of life or something like that. And smaller traumas I refer to, sorry, I'm going a bit sidetracked here, but smaller traumas are much more like the generational traumas that we might see around the neglect, emotional abuse, and so on, that maybe not everyone else sees. But certainly, spirituality and religion is definitely a protective factor for people, regardless of what you've been through, to help you. But that's not for everyone, and that's okay. But our evidence-based therapies, such as trauma-focused CBT, is one. Um, IFS, which is it's slowly developing evidence base for it. I quite like that therapy, but I don't use it with clients yet because we're developing evidence still in that area. But in those therapies, after people have gone through traumas, we help them find meaning as well. Because it's really common to blame yourself. We're talking about self-blame. For example, if your parents have separated or divorced when you grew up, often the child blames themselves. Or if you've experienced other neglect or abuse, or your father was an alcoholic or whatever, often children, because you're developing, or even an adolescent, because your brain is still developing, it's very common for you to go inward and say, maybe this was all my fault. Maybe I did something wrong, and that's why mum and dad's acting like this. That's why I'm being treated like this, and so on. So it can become really internalized. But when we turn that around and we say, okay, what can I make of that situation in terms of what have I learned about myself? What does this mean for me? Does it mean that I redirect my life into something that fits and aligns better with my values? Does it mean that I move to the other side of the world, or do I start a new career? Do I start a podcast? Um, all sorts of things. So finding meaning or going to spirituality and religion or what have you is hugely, hugely helpful, and an evidence-based technique when we're working through trauma.
I sincerely appreciate your beautiful insights, Dr. Emma. It shows that having the sense of meaning, understanding who we are, and also looking the perspective where we can fix ourselves into really plays a very huge role. And as I said earlier, religion also is a sense of belonging, and it also plays a very vital role to also rectify some kind of issue and some kind of pattern we do have in our life. It brings us to the position to be more upheard and also be more ahead to work on ourselves in one way or the other. I sincerely appreciate you for those beautiful insights. They are so powerful. And also, Dr. Emma, there is a question I normally ask during the end of the show, Dr. Emma. From our
Mm.
forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Dr. Emma, what do you think that thing will be, Dr. Emma?
Oh, goodness. This is a fantastic question. I have been talking to a lot of people about how we are very far disconnected from how our ancestors lived lately. So, in terms of being connected to the earth, in terms of being connected to each other, I think they, both of them, I know you asked for one, but I think both of them are really important right now. We know for our mental health, being in nature, being outside barefoot, having sunshine every day, which in today's world, especially, I'm not sure about there, but especially in Australia, so many people are working indoors all day, not spending time in nature, but they are very important pinnacles for our physical and our mental health as well. Hugely beneficial for our mental health. They release endorphins, they release dopamine, that are feel good chemicals in our body, reward chemicals in our body. And then connection, our ancestors perhaps lived more as collectivist cultures together with one another, helping one another. And we see there's still collectivist cultures across the world, but we see a lot of individualism at the moment, which is fine, of course, but connection releases serotonin, and serotonin is that love and bonding chemical. And we don't, over socializing is also going to be overwhelming for your nervous system, but connection with one another around people who value you is important. Not anyone, not everyone, but protecting who is in your space and your energy with people who value you and who are going to help you succeed and achieve your goals is really important as well. So I think being in your tribe, as we would say, um, and living with nature.
Community and also nature is very, very powerful. Nature is ordinary. It isn't connected with anything. It isn't connected with technology and every aspect we have around us today. Having the sense of connection with nature is another type of healing as well. And as you said, our culture, every single one of us in this life, how beautiful it is. We do have our culture, we have our background, we have where we are connected to. And when we realize those kind of areas, we see there is a sense of nature and also sense of coming together and showing love with one another. And despite the culture we have around us, we should try our best to see how we can connect with nature and hope that it's definitely something that we work on. It is another sense of a healing for us to become more better and more stronger as well. It isn't more easy in our time most of the time. We have a lot of technology and a lot of things around us, but if we can try our best to connect with nature, give the sense of natural, touch and all those things, it also help us in one way or the other. And also, Dr. Emma, I sincerely want to thank you for the time and the opportunity on speaking on generational trauma. We all are humans, and despite how we are, there are a lot of things that we can actually inherit from people we have left behind, and how we can try our best to develop it. We can't be perfect, just to develop it to become more better for the next generation that are coming in is always in our hand. Thank you so much, Dr. Emma.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Dr. Emma. Have a wonderful day, Dr. Emma. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you later.